So, first question, please.
It was widely publicized that, I mean, certain proof of the fact of whether or not Mallory had summited would be whether his wife's picture would have been placed on the summit. And from what I've read, you didn't find it. You didn't find it on him.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So is that how far does that go in actually ascertaining the fact that he actually did summit, considering it wasn't far from him? How was he carrying it? Was he carrying it somewhere?
Yeah, the picture of his wife Ruth, and so that's a tough one to go because he could have left it at the high point as a tribute to her. It could have come off of his body. It's not the proof that climbing historians would want to see is either an artifact on the summit, and when Tenzing and Hillary got there was nothing there. Of course, it was 29 years later. And then the other point would be a picture of the east face of Lhotse. And when they were there on June 8th, it was cloudy in the afternoon, so they probably wouldn't have been able to get a picture. It would have been a whiteout. So having either one of those, which would be real proof, are not there. And the photograph is a wonderful tribute to his love, but we probably can't use that as evidence. Good question. Please?
There's a lot of debate on which step they were on when I saw them last.
Yes.
Whether it was the first or the second, maybe the third news. In your estimation, which step do you think they were on?
Yeah, the question is what step were they on? I'll repeat it so everyone can hear it. Were they on the first step, the second step, or possibly even the third step? And it's hard to say because Odell was looking at it obliquely, and he could have identified the first or second step. The third step really wasn't built into the climbing lexicon until after that expedition. It was identified as the third step by the 1933 trip. So where he saw them is difficult to say because you're at altitude, the clouds were coming in, things like that. My best guess is that they were probably in the vicinity of the first step when they turned back, because the first step itself is very challenging. The second step is more challenging, and the third step is quite easy. So each one of those creates a barrier for them, but I was probably, they got to the first step, and then they turned back at that point, because to put them where they might have fallen in the evening and where Mallory's body is resting, because it's a traversing route, he couldn't have fallen off either the first or second step and ended up where he was at. They were well to the east of that, descending the yellow band. Please?
Is this the end of the quest, or are there plans, or is anybody working actually on expanding the search and trying to solve the riddle?
Is this the end of the quest? It is for me. So life is a linear experience, and I've spent enough time circling around on the Mallory story. So next goal is finish up Meru, and I'll get another. But there's a trip to go back to find Sandy Urban, and it's that's going to be probably 2 or 3 more expeditions. And I think people are up there on each expedition looking around, trying to find clues and things like that.
What, if I may expand on this, what is your personal, I mean, having gone through it and the whole emotional journey, I could say, I think, having stumbled upon the body, and you said that there was a lot of controversy around that as well. What's your personal opinion, Conrad, when it comes to continuing the quest? Whether it's you or somebody else?
Yeah, of course people are welcome to do what they want, as long as you don't harm other people and you don't do excessive harm to the environment. We're humans, and so you can do what you want. So, and it will continue on. I mean, people they're fascinated by the story, and I don't have any, I myself don't want to be part of it, and it will continue on. I would probably best off to let it rest. I think this is a great conclusion, and it's a good way to finish it up, because we don't know if they made it up, and we don't need to know. We don't need to, it's not a court of law. They really push the boundaries of what humans were able to do, and I doubt anything further light's really not going to change that. They're not going to, no one's going to be able to answer it unequivocally. And yet there's people out there that believe that he made it, and that there's no question that they should go on with that.
How did you decide what to retrieve, what to leave untouched? What are the protocols when you come across the remains of someone in a place like that? And what are some of the personal dilemmas that you had about wanting to identify for sure that it was Mallory? I mean, it must have been lots of...
Yes, it was a great question regarding his personal effects and what we did there. Hindsight is always 20/20, and if I had had the hindsight, I would have taken a couple archaeology classes and set up a real site. Because if you looked at it as modern day archaeology, an archaeologist would have laid out a grid, they would have photographed it, and they would have spent 3 weeks exhuming his body and using paintbrushes and detailing and mapping everything. So here we were, we didn't expect it to happen. It happened within an hour of the beginning of the search, and I'd never been to that altitude, my teammates, and so you're not really functioning that well at 8,000 meters. And so it was...
One is that the 1924 expedition was led by General Bruce.
Yes.
53 was Brigadier Hunt.
Yes.
Both Army persons. The 53 expedition seems to have been planned meticulously, like a proper war operation. You had the chance of seeing the way the 24 expedition might have been organized, because you virtually followed that route. And would you say there were huge gaps in organizing the 1924 expedition that could have led to the fact that this expedition failed?
Probably not huge gaps in the organization. They did a good job of setting camps and moving them up. So the question is the difference between 1953 and 24 and how they organized them. Probably the biggest advantage was in 53, they had all the previous expeditions, including the 1933 English trip and then the Swiss trips of 51 and 52, and the post-Second World War climbs to high altitude. So at that point, there was more knowledge of how the human body would react to altitude. And then overarching on that would be, they just went at it with more stuff, more people, more gear. So it was a small team in 24, and then in 53 it was a massive team.
It was a transition from what mountaineering used to be to a military operation in 53.
Yes. It's a great observation. Please?
So how did this change you?
How did it change me? Well, I'd have to ask my parents. They've known me longer than anyone, and I don't know if I was any. But it probably, I went from just being a regular climber to a small scale, someone that knows about the Mallory story, and so a little bit more in the public light, but a greater sense of appreciation for the pioneering climbers, and then moreover my connection with the Sherpa people. So in '99 I climbed with the same team out of Fort Say. They're my friends. I still climb with them now, and so many of the Sherpa from the mountain area are my friends. And so after having seen what had happened in 1922 when the avalanche swept 7 of them to their death, I realized that because Westerners and our crazy ambitions to go climb mountains have put a lot of people in harm's way, and we just do it because we pay them, but they don't do it from a love of climbing. And when you enjoy it and you love climbing, you're more aware of your situation and what you're doing. So trying to share that with the climbers that grow up and live in these mountains is a big goal of mine, to make it safer for them. So that's probably changed me on that. But I still wake up on the left side of the bed, and I still brush my teeth every night, I hope. So normal things. So please, in the back.
In addition to Mallory and Irving, there are close to about 150 bodies on Everest, aren't there? You cross any of them on your journey this time?
Yeah, the question is, there's been 150 fatalities on the mountain over time, and there's not as many bodies as it's made out to be in the press. And most of the time, the families are contacted, and other climbers give them a mountaineer's burial, sort of like a burial at sea, and they're moved off the track. So, and it's, yeah, you will see on the North Ridge route, and I don't have any experience on the South Ridge route, but there's most of the bodies, in fact, all of them have been taken away from the climbing track. So it's disheartening, and from a selfish standpoint, for the climbers, it takes your focus away, but then it's also out of respect to the deceased person. They don't want to be seen as a sideshow on the mountain. So it's better to rest in peace. Please?
I just wanted to know, when you went about the particular expedition where you found Mallory's body, did you all go about it like a rescue operation where you were actually looking for a body, or were you all just intent on climbing the mountain and then by mistake you found it? Like, did it happen like just because you looked around, or because you were specifically looking for a body?
It was a combination of both. And our expedition set out to look for the body because we know that it had been found by the Chinese climber in 1975. So we knew that, but I wasn't part of the search team. That necessarily wasn't mine. And so on the search day, they were up where everyone thought the search was going to be, and I was traversing and just acclimatizing and trying to take in as much of the terrain as I could and to see as much of it, but specifically looking. So when we set out on the 1st of May 1999, it was very specifically to look for one of the English dead. Please?
Yeah, in the film you say that upon finding the body, you thought of, you wanted to keep walking. What do you mean by that?
Well, probably a superstitious thing, because I did not want to disturb the dead. And I thought, well, if I could just keep it and just not say anything, but then again, that's what we were there for. And it was, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I could live with that. You know, if I wouldn't be here today talking about this. So it certainly changed my life, but it's just out of respect of something there. So, but there's a lot of places, and if you read Faulkner, who's a writer from the United States, he talks about the bear, and that he tries to find the bear, and the bear, and the bear, and he finally gives up trying to see the bear, and he sees the bear. So it's sort of mythical like that.
What's the name of the writer again, sorry?
Faulkner. So, please in the back.
Conrad, you know, if you look at all the literature that was written and all the books that were written after the 99 expedition, your book, Derek Simonson's book, you all came out on different sides of the debate at that point, in some ways, as to whether or not they actually summited or not. I'm curious how you know, because you were on the debunking side of the debate early on, how going through the film experience, getting up there again in the equipment, how you changed over time, if at all, your view of the entire effort over that decade.
A great question. Yeah, I still, it's possible but highly improbable they made it to the top. And it's just the difficulty of the second step, the location of his body and that. And when you watch the film, yeah, Leo is like, well, they could have made it. And I mean, I sound like a politician. I speak in euphemisms and artistically vague, but I don't believe they made it. And I'm not saying that to make Mallory any less than what he is. I don't think it's fair to say that, oh, that he made it because he was a great climber, he was the first. And the climbing up there is so difficult. And I think that Mallory was a very good climber. And part of being a good climber is knowing when you're at too much of a risk and it's time to turn back. And I think he saw that. He turned back, and it was either he or Irvin, as they were descending the yellow band, he slipped and pulled the other one off. The rope snapped, and then he can't do his rest. So, and it's, yeah, but it's sort of like opinions or like toothbrushes. Everyone has their own, and you're welcome to them. But keep my name, please.
Here, so was it merino wool? I mean, what do they have that they were wearing? Because you wore it and you tried to climb it.
Yeah.
And single leather boots at that altitude. Would they be, I mean, if you look at Maurice Herzog's expedition decades later, this is a frostbite on the way down. So, what was the experience like?
Yeah, and climbing in the clothing, which was woven silk and cotton and knit wool, and it was just, they had 7 layers on, so you really didn't have the flexibility. We're used to sports clothing now that has flexibility, and then down jackets that have quite a degree of warmth in it. So when you stop moving, you get warm right away, which they didn't have at that time. So they didn't have that warmth that would come to them when it was when they stopped moving. So, and the boots were, yeah, they were. When we went out, we would shoot for half a day. We'd be out there for 4 hours, and I had the best socks. I had those little heater packets. I'd stuff them in there. I was cheating. I drink hot tea all the time, and I still was cold. So it was, but that was the best gear they had, and they had nothing to compare it to. And just as we would look at automobiles now as compared to then, there's a huge difference in what it is. But what the future holds, we'll never know unless we go out to create it.